Las Vegas just spent $1.4 billion drilling a tunnel under a dying lake, and $2.3 million people are betting their lives that it works.
Right now, one of the most famous cities on Earth survives on a single source of water, one lake. And that lake has been slowly disappearing for 20 years. By 2022, it had dropped so low that Las Vegas was months away from running completely dry. Not a shortage, not restrictions, gone.
So, they did something no city had ever tried before. They drilled 3 miles straight through solid rock
to reach water that no drought could ever touch. They called it the third straw. It took 7 years to build and cost $1.4 billion. It should have saved everything. But here is what nobody is talking about. The lake is still draining. The tunnel only goes so deep, and there is a hard limit at the bottom, a point where even this billion-dollar miracle becomes completely useless.
Las Vegas was never supposed to exist. The city sits in the Mojave Desert, one of the most unforgiving stretches of land in North America.
Annual rainfall averages just 4 inches. Summer temperatures regularly crack 115 degrees Fahrenheit, baked by a sun that shows no mercy and cooled by nothing. There are no rivers running through it, no natural lakes within reach, no underground aquifers large enough to sustain a city of any real size. By every measurement nature has ever.
And yet, more than 2.3 million people call it home.
In 1940, Las Vegas was a railroad town of roughly 8,000 residents. Modest, dusty, easy to overlook. Then came the casinos, the highways, the air conditioning, and the American appetite for reinvention that has never once known when to stop.
The population exploded in ways that urban planners had never modeled and water managers had never prepared for.
By the 1970s, the city was growing faster than nearly anywhere else in the country.
By the 1990s, it had become one of the fastest expanding metro areas in American history. The desert did not slow it down. Nothing did.
Today, the Las Vegas Valley houses over 2.3 million permanent residents and welcomes 40 million tourists every single year.
40 million people who shower, drink, flush, and fill pools in the middle of a desert that receives less rainfall annually than most cities get in a single week.
All of them need water. All of them assume it will be there when they turn on the tap.
The numbers behind that assumption are staggering. Las Vegas consumes approximately 300,000 acre-feet.
To put that in terms that actually mean something, it is enough water to submerge the entire island of Manhattan under 3 feet of liquid, and then do it again every single year.
That is not the water budget of a cautious city, making careful choices in a difficult environment.
That is the water budget of a place that grew, as though the desert were a minor inconvenience rather than an existential threat. And nearly 90% of every single drop comes from one place, one lake, fed by one river.
Managed by one agency, trying to solve an impossible equation every single day.
A booming city, a shrinking river, and a single lake standing between 2.3 million people and a
The lake was already starting to disappear. The Colorado River does not look like the lifeline of the American West. It looks like a river, brown, winding, unremarkable from a distance. But 40 million people across 7 states, and for more than a century, the rules governing who gets how much of it have been built on a foundation that was flawed from the very first day it was signed.
In 1922, representatives from 7 western states gathered to divide the Colorado River's water among themselves.
The agreement they produced, known as the Colorado River Compact, allocated the river's entire flow based on measurements taken.
At the time, the numbers seemed reasonable. The river was flowing. The future looked generous.
Nobody stopped to ask whether the data they were working from reflected long-term reality or simply an unusually lucky stretch of.
The compact allocated more water than the river actually produces in most years.
That miscalculation was not a minor rounding error. It was a structural flaw baked into the foundation of water policy across the entire American Southwest.
And for a century, it has been quietly accumulating, growing heavier with every decade of population growth.
Every new city,
Every new farm, drawing from a river that was never as limitless as the original document assumed.
So did Phoenix. So did Los Angeles. So did millions of farmers across Arizona and California.
The water Las Vegas depends on flows into Lake Mead, the largest reservoir in the United States, stretches.
It was designed to store surplus in wet years and release it during dry ones. For decades, the system worked. Then the drought.
There is a number that keeps water engineers awake at night. That number is 895 feet. The point at which water can no longer flow past Hoover Dam under any circumstances whatsoever.
But the water they were built to reach is simply gone, sitting below their openings, inaccessible and irretrievable.
Las Vegas has always known it was living on borrowed time. So, it built its survival in stages, one pipe at a time.
It was straightforward infrastructure for its era. A pipe positioned at an elevation of 150 feet above sea level.
At the time, it seemed like more than enough. Lake Mead was full. The Colorado River was flowing.
The kind of worst-case scenario that planners acknowledge once and then quietly file away. Water managers plan for growth.
Intake number 1 alone could no longer guarantee the supply security that a city growing this fast demanded. So,
Intake number 2, positioned slightly lower at an elevation of 1,000 feet, was designed as a backup and it was a cautious, forward-thinking decision. Engineers felt confident. Officials felt prepared.
A world where the Colorado River delivered what the 1922 Compact had promised. A world...
The decline was slow at first, almost imperceptible. A few feet per year, easy to explain away as a temporary drought.
The reassuring narrative of natural cycles started sounding less convincing with every new measurement. By July 20, the Bureau of Reclamation projections were no longer hedging. Continued decline was not just possible, it was probable. The city that should never have existed was now staring directly at a future that the original engineers had never imagined.
the plan was audacious. The execution was nearly impossible. Engineers at the Southern Nevada Water Authority
that no drought in recorded history could ever reach it. Not close to the bottom, below it, through the bedrock, underneath the lake bed itself. Lower than Deadpool. Lower than anything either existing intake could touch. Lower than any municipal water intake ever.
Some of the hardest rock on the continent, while working hundreds of feet below an active reservoir holding trillions of gallons of water directly overhead.
One mistake, one miscalculation, one crack in the wrong place at the wrong moment. The consequences could not be undone.
Construction began in 2008. From the very first day, nothing was easy. A massive tunnel boring and set to work, grinding through the basalt layer by layer. Sandy measured 23 feet in diameter, wide enough to drive.
She was precise, powerful, and still completely unprepared for what the geology had waiting. Unexpected rock formation.
Equipment broke down under pressures that the engineering models had underestimated. Water seeped through fissures in the rock, threatening to flood active sections.
Sandy completed her run in 2014. The tunnel was sealed, tested, and declared operational in 2015. The bill arrived with it. $1.4 billion paid entirely by Southern Nevada residents.
A tax on survival that nobody voted for and almost nobody fully understood. Critics called it obscene. Environmentalists called it the wrong message entirely.
But by 2022, without the third straw already operational, water managers estimated Southern Nevada.
The crisis arrived exactly on schedule. By mid-2022, Lake Mead had dropped to just over 20.
Then something unexpected happened. The winter of 2022 to 2023 delivered record-breaking snowpack across the
relays. The recovery was real. It was also fragile. Drilling deeper was only half the strategy. The other half was using less.
Nevada passed legislation banning ornamental grass, the decorative turf lining medians surrounding office parks.
Illicit. Las Vegas recycles approximately 99% of its indoor water. Treated wastewater discharged back into Lake Mead.
By any measurement, it is one of the most dramatic urban conservation turnarounds in American history.
Las Vegas had changed everything it could change, drilled everything that could be drilled, conserved everything that could be conserved, and the lake was still not safe. Climate projections for the American Southwest are not ambiguous. The region is getting hotter, drier, and more unpredictable. Paleoclimate research delivers the most unsettling layer of all. Tree ring data and geological records show...
Stinks, guys. Las Vegas is not unique. The 2026 renegotiation of that compact will force decisions.
The desert is still winning. The third straw is real. The conservation numbers are real.
Transitions. What Las Vegas built beneath Lake Mead bought something genuinely valuable. Time.
The hard part is political. It is cultural. It is the decision that 40 million people across 7 states